family. So, full disclosure, guys, I'd filmed this ranking video the same day I filmed my F9 review. I was about to edit it and post it. I'm like, shit, there's no audio. Somehow the audio didn't record, so I'm going to have to record this thing all over again. It's going to end up being posted way later than I wanted it to be, but it is what it is. I really wanted to do this video. There's an even 10 movies now, so it's a perfect time for me to do my first Fast and Furious ranking on this channel. Without further ado, let's get this thing started. At number 10 is going to be the Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. I just don't care for this movie whatsoever. I don't like that it's a high school story. I don't care for the characters whatsoever, especially Sean. I just thought he's a major step down from Dom and Brian. He just lacks the charisma that those guys have. Didn't care for the storyline. The side characters, aside from Han, were pretty lame as well. The villain was pretty lame. Drifting is interesting in concept, but wasn't super interesting in this movie. Just very, very forgettable one in my opinion. So at number 9 is going to be the newcomer, and that's F9, the Fast Saga. This movie does some things right. It's certainly entertaining to watch. It's never boring. There are fun moments to watch in the theater with all the stunt work and the CGI, and there's a lot of cool, big, bombastic action scenes. But to me, this is the one that took it too far. I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers here. If you haven't seen it and you don't want to know anything, skip ahead to the next one. You'll be able to tell up on the screen when I switch to the next number in my ranking. But they go to space in a car in this movie. They use this little magnet thing that basically lets them do whatever the fuck they need at any given time. There's a scene you see in the trailer with Dom hooking on the rope and swinging the car around the cliff. They had done some crazy stuff in this franchise before, but this is the one for me that took it way too far, and I'm just not a fan of it. I hope they tone it down a little bit for the next one. I doubt they will, but as a big fan of this franchise, this is the one that lost me, and that's why it is at number 9. Number 8 is going to be Furious 7. Now, there's a huge jump from F9 to Furious 7. Everything from here on out on the ranking is a movie that I would give a positive score, a movie I would say I like or enjoy. So Furious 7 at number 8, this is one that I originally loved when it first came out. I thought it was like the best movie in the franchise easily. It was like one of my favorite movies of all time. I was riding that high from the ending and everything they did with Paul Walker's character after his death, and I thought it was a perfect send-off for him, which I still think that. But years later, looking back on it now, the story is a total mess. This is a very, very convoluted movie. And you can tell that Paul Walker's death kind of screwed things up and they kind of had to scramble and stitch things together a little bit. That is what happened, and when you're watching the movie, it's pretty apparent. And now looking back on it with the whole God's Eye stuff and how they're trying to get the God's Eye to find Deckard Shaw, but Deckard Shaw keeps finding them anyway. And the thing with Jaimin Hunsu's character, who was completely wasted. Just a very messy storyline, and you could tell that, unfortunately, because of what happened, they really had to scramble and kind of try to stitch things together, so that was unfortunate. But I still enjoy a lot of it. There's a lot of cool action scenes, there's some great character moments, and of course, the send-off for Paul Walker is great. So Fury 7 is at number 8. So number 7 is going to be Fast and Furious, which is the 4th one. I enjoy this movie. I think it's okay. It doesn't really stand out compared to some of the other ones. What I do like is getting the gang back together. I like Dom and Brian's rapport. I mean, they have a great chemistry and relationship. I like Brian getting back with Mia. I don't like that Brian's a cop again. Don't really like the main villain, although I do like the secondary villain, which is Phoenix. I thought he was cool. And the tunnel stuff is a little hit or miss. I think it was a cool idea, but it's really hard to film, and watching those scenes, it's kind of cutty, and you can tell that that's not a thing that's very easy to put onto screen in a way that's easy and satisfying for us to see. So this one doesn't... It's good. I like the characters in it. The storyline is solid, but it doesn't really do anything to set itself apart from the rest of the movies. So at number 6 is going to be Fate of the Furious. I enjoy this one. Obviously, it goes too far in some ways, not nearly as far as F9, but the submarine thing, yeah, that's a bit much. It's a little bit of a convoluted storyline. Dom turning Although the way they explained it makes sense, it still was a little bit of a weird direction to take this movie and the franchise in general. I enjoy Charlize as a villain, and I hope we get to see more of her in F10. Spoiler, she's still alive. It seems like we will. But yeah, I enjoy her as a villain. I like The Rock. I mean, his presence was dearly missed in F9, and it was really felt in this one, and he definitely, I'd say, as far as like the good characters, he carried this movie. And him, you start to see the beginning of the banter between him and Statham's Deckard Shaw, which eventually leads into the Hobbs and Shaw movie. So I enjoyed Fate of the Furious quite a bit. That's why it's at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Hobbs and Shaw. I like this movie. It's ridiculous, but it knows exactly what it is. It sets the tone right from the beginning. Idris Elba's villain is awesome, even though he's basically a cyborg, but you're totally okay with it. At least I was while I was watching this movie. I love the rapport between The Rock and Jason Statham. To me, they're the two best things going in this franchise. Adding Vanessa Kirby to the mix was perfect. She feels like she fits in with them. She plays off their jokes, is a badass, and fits in perfectly with this group. I hope to see more of her as the franchise goes along. Got a couple funny cameos in there. Of course, it gets a little goofy with The Rock holding onto the helicopter with the chain, and it's a pretty convoluted storyline, but this one was very enjoyable to me. At number 4 is going to be the original, The Fast and the Furious. Guys, I really like this movie, and it has aged very well. I like it more and more. The more I think about it, the more I watch it. Yes, it's basically a ripoff of Point Break, but I don't really care. I think it's effective. I really like Dom in this movie. This is probably Dom at his best before he becomes a superhero, and I feel like this is maybe his best character arc in the entire franchise. The best characterization he ever gets. Brian gets a great character arc as well. You see the foundation of Brian and Mia's relationship. Johnny Tran and his cousin Lance are pretty cool villains. Yeah, we've seen this kind of story before. It's predictable. A little cheesy at times, but it doesn't go nearly as far with you don't even get any of the ridiculousness that you have in the later movies. It focuses more on racing, which is cool. Some of the ways that the racing scenes are shot, where they zoom into the cars and kind of run through the insides of the cars. Thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, this is a very enjoyable movie. Doesn't quite hit the highs of some of the other ones that are a little bit higher on my list, but I like this one a lot, and I go back to it a lot, and it gets better and better each time. Speaking of getting better and better each time, Too Fast, Too Furious is my number 3. This movie's awesome, and it is extremely underrated. This movie's hated on way too much. Got like a 5 point something on IMDb, which is totally ridiculous. I think Too Fast, Too Furious is a damn fun movie. I love the relationship between Brian and Roman. They have great chemistry. You learn about their past in a way that doesn't seem like they're just dropping exposition to the fans. It seems like in a way that makes sense for them to talk about this. The dialogue is a little goofy in the way that they talk to each other, but I've also heard that that's how people in Florida talk. So, not really sure. That's a lot of people complain about that. I thought it was fine, but it does get a little bit much at times. But Carter Verone, I think, is a great villain. I'm still holding out hope that he returns at some point. Probably not, because there's only 2 movies left. But Cole Hauser, I think, did a great job. I like Eva Mendes in this movie. I like that the storyline, how they're going undercover to clear their records if they take down Verone. I thought that was a cool storyline. The jumping on the boat thing was a bit much. Not nearly as bad as anything we see in the other movies, but compared to the rest of this movie, bit of a stretch. The rat scene was really intense. I thought this was a very, very enjoyable movie. I don't get the hate for it at all. Too Fast, Too Furious is my number 3. My number 2 is going to be Fast and Furious 6. This one's awesome. It goes a little bit too far at the end with the really long runaway thing. But other than that, I enjoy the storyline. I like the idea of Hobbs recruiting the team to help him take down a new international terrorist. I love Owen Shaw. Owen Shaw might be my favorite villain of the entire franchise. Such a badass. Luke Evans does a great job in the role. His conversations with Dom are great. The stuff with Letty I thought was pretty cool. Even though they kind of repeat the character turned to the bad side in a later movie, didn't work quite as well, but I thought it worked pretty well in this one, and did seem to make some sense. There's a couple side plots that weren't absolutely necessary, but this one has some really cool stuff in it. The flipping cars, there's some really cool hand-to-hand fights, like between Letty and Gina Carano, and with Rome and Han getting their asses kicked by that other guy. I like the idea of the good team versus the bad team. I like, again, Owen Shaw. I already mentioned Owen Shaw is a great villain. I like the way he talks to his team, and you can see the contrast between how Dom treats his team and how Owen treats his. Just very, very enjoyable movie that had not gone too far yet, even though you see bits of it, bits and pieces of it here and there, but not nearly as bad as anything in like F9. This one was a really, really awesome, fun movie to watch. But of course, number one is easily Fast 5. This movie is fucking awesome. This is easily the best movie in the Fast and Furious franchise. It is the peak of the Fast and Furious franchise. Not only that, it's a very, very good action heist movie. You get the first time the team comes together. You get the first time that you see The Rock's Hobbs in this franchise, and he has had his absolute best in this movie that he's ever been in the entire franchise. Such a badass. He's got a cool team. Reyes is a good villain. You get the stuff with Vince being back, and then what ends up happening to him. The family dynamic, I feel like, is the best it ever is in this movie. I enjoy the two Latino guys that we don't really see much of anymore as the franchise goes on. Their back and forth is great. The stuff with Han and Giselle, Mia's there. Just such an enjoyable movie. It's a very fun heist movie, and it doesn't go too far. It's a lot of fun. There's some big action scenes. The only thing they do is the safe pulling scene at the end, but you can remotely believe that. They're like, okay, that I could see that happening potentially. The only thing that bothers me about that is all the innocent people they killed, but that's kind of beside the point. The ship has sailed on that in this franchise at this point, but they hadn't gone too far yet. The storyline is tight for the most part. They don't waste too many scenes like they do in some of the other movies in this franchise. And just every time I watch this movie, it's such a blast. I love heist movies. I love action movies. Seeing the team together for the first time is awesome. Just so many things to enjoy from this movie, and it makes for easily the best Fast and Furious movie and a great action heist movie overall. Fast 5 is easily my number one. All right, guys, there you have it. I'm glad I was finally able to record and post this. I had it already, but somehow the audio didn't work, even though I recorded it right after my F9 review, in which the audio was fine, so that's a pretty weird how that happened. I tested the mic before this, so if this doesn't work, I'm going to be really pissed, but it should. So thanks for sticking with me. I got a lot more cool stuff coming, got some cool ideas, but there's just one other thing I got to figure out in my life first before I start doing some of that. I got to also get a new setup at some point. That's coming very soon. Stay tuned. And guys, if you have a ranking of all the 10 Fast and Furious movies, drop it below. I'd like to see what you think. Of course, we're going to disagree. That always happens. We're never going to have the same ranking. No two people would have the same ranking of 10 movies, most likely. So drop yours. We can discuss it. And hit the like button if you enjoy this video. Subscribe, notification bell if you enjoy my content. And I will see you guys soon.